Yeah, bridge without support. So you gotta cantilever it. There's some crazy stuff, but um, something something to consider is just that we don't actually uh, mixed race white Americans who are mixed white. That's becoming American. Uh, but I've noticed that when it doesn't matter when you're a mix of anything. There's there's a question. Sometime back in history, there's probably a conflict between your, unless they're so geographically far apart, like Russian and English or something. That didn't happen until, well, of course that happened. That happened in the 1800s. But Russia fought England, so it's likely that, okay, there's a high chance that you're going to find conflict between your genes in the past, and so white America, I'm sorry, mixed white America, mixed white America, um, doesn't do that great a job of preserving those connections, because it gets hard, and you can only go back so far in history before you have to become a historian. And I don't think I mean, I've met a lot of white people, and I ask, where are you from? And first of all, they don't, I'm American, but I have a geographic interest in history, so I'm always like, well, what's your descent and stuff, and a lot of times people don't have all that much knowledge anymore about the countries they're from, and that's just an example of why, you know history. Yeah, I just take history, but really it's a lot of disciplines, but sociology, all that stuff. Why it's so important if you want to make use of who you are. If you want to identify, and now for the original English, that's pretty hard because there's very few pure English white people anymore. I mean, they that's a question. That's a big question. That's a big question. Yeah, how pure could you be? How English could you be, or say English? You know, how English could you be anymore? Um, I'll bet you it's a pretty small crowd, because that's just, you know you had the division of race in America, and but you let whites mix, and and so they're not purely English anymore. I mean, I don't know. I bet you there's areas where you can go, and it's more likely. Like, I don't know, maybe parts of the South or Canada or something. You know, Maine. I don't know, but I'm a quarter Newfie, and that was all white. And but actually, the in Newfoundland, the English and the Irish were at each other's throats almost for a while. and there's a lot of shame. I know from the English side about that. There's a lot of shame about what happened to the Indians in Newfoundland, and I don't, it's relevant to me in this age because that's past. But going back to what I'm getting at is, so Fugazi could be, you could say, it's important that I cover this for mixed all white America. Yeah, I do claim that they have a Fugazi element because they can't reach back. They could just do these days. You do a genetic test, and you're going to find out. I have a cousin. He's almost no. He's pure Irish. Actually, he's still pure Irish. But they don't. But our family reaches back. Well, let's see. His maternal side reaches back. A cousin who's almost all Irish or 100% Irish reaches back to the 1840s or something. My mom's side and his mom's side. And so I can understand, like, when you have a lot of English or you have a lot of Irish, you can't really get away from the fact that you're just one race, but that's a construction, because then what you do is, if you're going to be a historian about it, you read the history and you learn about a lot about your country, and you find out your country's not pure, or it wasn't pure for a long time. And now they even found out the Vikings adopted a lot of people who may have been fleeing the Roman Empire. I don't know. So let's get on. Let's get back to. This is going to be a bad video, but that's okay. I'm sorry. So I said, well, no, I'm talking about. I said to AI, well, no, I'm talking about people who have mixed race heritage from other races. Mixed Europeans is another topic, and amounts to a discussion of purely white America. We covered it a little. As far as my views in terms of Europe, I think you have to go a step further, and start to go back in time. And when you go back in time, what you're doing is you're multiplying the possibilities that you're going to have someone in there. There's going to be a percentage, greater and greater percentage chance that you have somebody that was not purely from Ireland or from Germany or from Italy. And because we have so many ancestors, and then and go far back far enough, and you find out that, oh, look, white Europeans have a percentage of Neanderthal blood, and right there, I think the whole Neanderthal thing lays to rest our purity assumptions in terms of the last 100,000 years, at least, and even later, even younger. The Neanderthal were here until 35,000 years ago, or something like that, right? hiding in the caves in Spain. So I don't I don't have I don't have something against people who want to keep their genes similar. You know, you do that enough, and then what happens is your genes drift. Because all people, everybody has genes that are drifting. So you just look at cats and dogs. When you breed the same breed over and over and over, they start drifting into having like weird things going on. Like like those poor little dogs. But or the poor giant dogs for that matter. Um, so thanks for clarifying. That is a different topic, but is it really? Because we're all mixed. Let's just take this construct back to how America's divided into races, and we've got a lot of white people who are passing. Okay, it's still America, and they're not passing absolutely. If there's something that you're not that white, it comes up. It comes up in weird moments. There's always some kind of. It's all relative, so you have to. We, as white people who are past, it's a relative thing. It's like I could just be making you uncomfortable just because there's something about me, about my manner or something that makes you uncomfortable. And I don't know that it has anything to do with my race, background, but there's just something that makes you uncomfortable. I don't know what it is. So that's kind of like the beyond thing on personality. So that's why it's all relative. So there could be other reasons why people don't take to you. So anyway, if you're talking about Americans who have both European ancestry and ancestry from other racial or ethnic groups, for example, someone who is part white and part black, Asian, Native American, Latino, Pacific Islander, or another background, then you're discussing multiracial Americans, not simply Americans of mixed European ancestry. I'd still advise against calling them Fugazi because the Fugazi commonly means fake or phony. Many listeners would understandably interpret it as suggesting that multiracial people are somehow less authentic. Even if that isn't your intention, it's a term with a strong negative connotation that would likely become the focus of the conversation rather than your ideas. If your interest is historical or sociological, there are a lot of interesting questions you could explore. How has the number of multiracial Americans changed over time? How do people of mixed ancestry choose to identify? How have changing social attitudes affected interracial marriage and family life? Does the concept of race become less meaningful as populations become more genetically and culturally mixed? Well, here's the thing: is that the Fugazi, in a lot of ways equate with like. With this idea that there's people who are that they're it equates with being Jewish, it equates with being Muslim, it equates with being something other, okay, in a sense, but that's religion, and that's not really practical because religion has nothing to do with race. Aside from, people who argue over who Jesus was, which is really disturbing to me because he kind of he did too much to have been too worried about race. He was trying to pull the Jews out of all this stuff that had developed, and I don't know. I don't know. The thing that is really disturbing about it is that he consciously believed that this what his message was because it was real, was going to reach the world, and that's what happened before Islam. Before Islam, Christianity couldn't be a race religion because Christianity was spreading. It spread it spread all the way to Central Asia. I mean, spread all the way to Ethiopia, you know, and but the main thing was that he needed to spread it into Rome because Rome was the dominant empire, and he needed it to just dissipate whatever was wrong in the empire. That's Jesus. But if your interest is historical or sociological, there are a lot of interesting questions you could explore instead. How has the number of multiracial Americans changed over time? How do people with mixed ancestry choose to identify? How have social attitudes affected interracial marriage and family life? Does the concept of race become less meaningful as populations become more genetically and culturally mixed? Those questions can lead to a thoughtful discussion without assigning a label that many people would find dismissive. I'd be interested to hear the broader argument you're trying to make. Is your video about how multiracial identity is changing American society, or is it about something more specific? Well, I said, here's the rub. The Fugazi are effectively the virtual Italians. In a sense, that's true. Because when you mix races, you get a dominant I gene, for one. So, I mean, you get a recessive I gene. And what happens is a lot of us mixed race people have brown eyes because when you mix a blue-eyed person with someone who doesn't have blue alleles, you get brown eyes. What's interesting about that is that those brown eyes may that person may carry the blue allele. That's a whole other story about how I think one of the reasons why they've done studies, okay? They've done studies that blue-eyed people tend to be more cautious than brown-eyed. Brown-eyed people are more aggressive, more less caution, and that has helped me in my life. I knew that since I was 18 or something, or no, in my early 20s. I took a physiology class. It was dinosaur physiology class. It didn't matter. Just the basics are the same, right? But where was I? Yeah, Rome was well. Let's go. I think I so yeah. I think I see where you're going. It's an interesting analogy, though I suggest making it explicit so your audience doesn't misunderstand. If I understand you correctly, you're not saying multiracial Americans are fake. You're using Fugazi in the sense of a new synthesis something that has emerged from the blending of different peoples and isn't reducible to any one ancestral group. The analogy to Rome could be framed like this. Ancient Rome eventually ceased to be simply a city of Latin tribes. Over centuries, it became a civilization composed of Italians, Greeks, Gauls, Iberians, Syrians, and North Africans, and many others who came to think of themselves as Romans, like Jews. Anyway, likewise, the United States, by producing a new people whose identity is not defined by a single ancestral race, but by a shared American culture. That's a historical sociological argument can be that people can engage with. Where I think the analogy becomes more difficult is the word Fugazi. Yeah, because in common American language, it overwhelmingly means phony or counterfeit. Many viewers won't hear new Romans; they'll hear fake people. Once that happens, the discussion will shift from your historical thesis to the label itself. Yeah, well, the thing is, the thing is this is a transitional thing. America, look, America can evolve. We can drift. Okay. We can drift some. You're gonna have really white people in America for 1,000 years. Okay. Whether or not they're pure. Just because, in a sense, the multi-race Fugazi are your out. We're your out, okay? And if you want to look at the natural tendency to do that is something like Prince Harry marrying a very light-skinned black girl who has a white father. Okay? It's natural. It's natural. You might just tend to find that more attractive. Okay? Okay? Then being able to deal with something that is, purely opposite you in another race. Okay? In you, it might seem attractive that there's this synthesis. Okay, I think that's natural. Okay, I don't think I think it's going to be a natural tendency in humans for the rest of eternity. I think not just white people do that. All the races do that. The black races, the Latino races, the Asian races. From their perspective, they're doing the opposite. They're attracted to the darker white person who's got is a quarter or eighth white. That's for the purely Chinese person comes to America. Hey, look at that girl! Wow, she's got some white ancestry, so she's slightly different, Yeah, that's. I don't know. It's just a tendency in us. Transitions. Okay, transitioning is easier. I don't know. You can argue with that. You can say that's racist. I think it's more a kind of a ability to communicate ideas. It's like if you've got I'll tell you something else. My white ancestry is Dutch and Irish. And there's a divide there having to do with religion. And I honestly think that I am so fucking crazy because I've it's really hard to reconcile this identity that in Northern Ireland is still a it's still crunching people's lives. This divide, okay? In Northern Ireland, I'm made up of people, the orange on one side and the green on the other. So I did I do find myself attracted to certain women who are who can who I mean, it's not that I'm attracted to them. It's that intellectually, I I I find it attractive that there are, like, well, in a sense, because of that identity, I kind of go for, like, the Scots girls, right? But no, I don't. There's such a level of sacredness to it that, but in a sense, I am attracted to Scottish culture because um, there was a mixing there too. Okay, between uh, the Germans and the Celts, right, and the Picts, and I tend to think I'm kind of, yeah, I have a lot of identity things with the Picts. I don't know why, because they were matriarchal, and my Indonesian side is a matriarchal society. It's actually not matriarchal now because it's Islamic, but it is matrilineal. It's Islamic, and to a certain degree, the only reason I think it's matrilineal instead of matriarchal is that matrilineal was they could preserve the matrilineal aspect within the surrounding patriarchal societies, but it's like the rulers were always the sister's eldest brother. So when we take my grandfather's name, Sutton, he got the Sutton in his name, but he wasn't the oldest. I think I don't know. It's just something about matriarchies that I identify with, and I have an attraction to Scottish culture because if I dwell on Scotland, I don't have to deal with, the Battle of the Boyne, which was a terrible battle that the Irish lost. These anecdotes are part of what it means to be human. On my mom's side, she's a Donovan. And I went back in history, and it turns out the Donovans got in a big fight with Brian Boru a long time ago, 1,000 years ago. So, and actually the Donovans executed a particular Donovan, not all the Donovans, but unfortunately the Donovan king executed Brian Boru's older brother. And so I have this great, wow, this is the time of the Vikings. The Donovans are actually friends with the Vikings, and they support the Vikings against Brian Boru. And just from that story, I figure, geez, if I've got Donovan blood, it's very likely I have Viking blood. Could be. just but from the fact that that they could live with the Vikings. You know what I'm saying? So all these anecdotes feed into this idea that we can make more use of our ancestry. We don't have to. We don't have. If you want to, if you want to keep history, this war of the races in America, this imagined war of the races between the pure races against each other, which politically, it kind of makes me sick that it happens in the Latinos, it happens in the blacks. The only people who seem to be able to imbibe America as it is the American Indians, because they don't care who the fuck it is. You're on their land. It's okay. It's okay, we're living with it, they say, but it doesn't matter to them anymore. Well, yeah, they blame the whites because the whites are the ones who took it away, but it doesn't matter to them anymore because it doesn't really matter to them who you are. In my experience, I know American Indians treat everyone the same, a little bit suspiciously, not always totally open. Okay? So you got to work. You got to work to see things their way. But I don't have a problem with being called fake anymore. You want to call me fake? The issue to me becomes are you really a genuine person if you are that hung up about my race? And, to me, I find a lot of insecurity in that. I find a lot of insecurity because um, you don't see what I know, for instance. You don't see what I've done in my life to learn history, so that a lot of times when I talk history, I say things that people are gonna doubt in me. For instance, my friend Scott Aiken died tragically, homeless under a bridge in San Rafael, California, where he lived for a few years, and then he died. What was I going to say about Scott? Well, I'm glad I mentioned him. And mine just went blank. Oh, yeah. I put up a movie in memorial for him called The Battle of Aiken, because his last name was Aiken, and I think he was descended from the Aikens who established Aiken, because he's from a big, huge Aiken family. So, well, if the family's that big, it's probably, and they're from South Carolina. They're probably from the town, right? And I put up the Battle of Aiken because it gets into the whole issue about Sherman's march to the sea, and how the United States of America missed this chance to kind of, they could have, instead of burning, and they could have burning and pillaging, they could have made a better effort, but they turned the troops on the civilians, and it's really a worthy movie because it was, it's a little bit for kids. In other words, the war aspect was a little bit like, it was written, it's the kind of movie that you could show high school kids, like in a high school class, and then have a discussion about it, and that's worthy. That's a worthy endeavor. What do you think? What do you think that what it is? It's not really honest enough, but there were about the slaves because it doesn't cover the slaves. There just happened to be some lucky slaves in the movie who had a good owner. But you know, so you don't know anything about me, and you judge me on my race. I may have a whole panoply of glory, okay, for every damn country in the world that I you know I hate the Germans, but I don't because I go back far enough and you get to Rome and Rome invaded Germany, right? You know, and so I don't hate the Germans anymore. Well, I did hate the Germans once, but it's not all Germans. Just the concept of what happened in the Second World War, I hated. I hated it. I was I read the whole story. I read the whole Second World War. You can't escape it. It was a bad time. Hitler made it a lot worse. All right. So, what is the new Romans comparison is intriguing because Roman identity was ultimately more civic and cultural. Civic and cultural. So they didn't have the race yet. We weren't divided into races. It was civic and cultural. You adopt Italian culture, you become Italian. And that was my experience when I was still young enough that well, here's the thing. Look at me. Do I pass as an Italian? No, not absolutely, but color-wise, I got a lot to say about that. Okay? Color-wise, you can tell I'm kind of yellow. But I'm white. And the Italians back in the day, in the 70s, yeah, they knew I wasn't, or did they? Did they know that I was white or not? I think more importantly is, are you Italian? No, I'm not Italian. And they have laws that keep people from becoming Italian now. And they have a terrible problem multiplying nowadays. So I don't see it as a truly bad thing to use the word Fugazi because, well, why am I using an Italian word? Well, I think American Fugazi is a concept. I think American Fugazi is what's the word? I'd rather be a Fugazi than just a mutt. Okay, I am a mutt. I'm proud to be a mutt. But I'd rather I'd rather have something like that I can stand for and say, look, we had this experience once, and we don't mind. Eventually you get old enough. This is getting long. One more thing. Slipped top of my head. Historical analogy. America is developing a new composite people as Rome did. We got to make use of these things. So, in a sense, I'm like saying, telling everyone, you got to go out and you got to do everything you can to understand the world, and if you want to understand the world, you got to understand yourself, and to understand yourself, you got to do the history, and history is interesting because you can look for a narrative that is all your golden narrative about yourself, but reality is you're going to find all these things you don't like about yourself. And what happens with that? Then what you do is you start singling out examples. And when you start singling out examples of what you like about your history, then you start finding examples of what you like about in other people's history. Okay? And that's a common ground. The best people always tell the greatest are always the greatest story to tell. Okay, and it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter who you are, but the best people always have the greatest story to tell. So be proud. Be proud if you're Fugazi. I don't think this isn't going to pick up and so forth. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of Americans who I think instinctively, it's kind of time. It's kind of time. It's kind of time. It's kind of time that we use something, and we use an Italian word, because what does Fugazi mean? Fake. Yeah, but it's in Italian. It's not. We're not the fake race. We're the Fugazi race. You know? In America. American Fugazi. That's the experience. Because I don't want to get into how it's different in Europe, where, yeah, once you're, for a long time in Europe, if you were half whatever you're from, you got selective priority. It's just a family thing, you know. And the sad thing is that I think because of this insecurity for white America, you know, the insecurity that you don't have the direct connection, you don't have a home in Europe. That's it. You feel you don't have a home in Europe. But what I learned in life was that, you know, it's just a matter of time. That's all. In the modern age, you can go someplace and live. You can go there and make it your home. It's just a matter of time. It's going to take work. And an American who goes to Europe, it's going to take work to be European. I know, because I went back to Europe when I was in my 20s, and I'd already played too many Civil War songs on my guitar. And it was really disturbing to sit in England and sound like an American playing Civil War songs, okay, on my guitar. It really hit me. That was when I realized, wow, becoming American is a work, because I imbibe so much American culture. People in Europe, I don't look really American. I mean, I look more like a mixed race Guy Fawkes, really. Tears. All right, guys. Good luck. Look for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Because I think when you study enough of your culture and other people's cultures, then you do get a pot of gold. And that's, you're okay, no matter who you are. Okay? Just be good. Then you'll tell the best stories. Be a good person. Be good. Be the best you can. Those will be the best stories. Thanks.